So it looks like the marquee is going to be presented right next to the gate. There's all our radioactive toxic goop and stuff. This whole thing just looks so unbelievably sinister. Even this piece right here has vines all throughout. And while I might not be the smartest person in the world, I do know a connection when I see one. Good afternoon, my beauties. We are back at Universal Orlando for even more Halloween Horror Nights updates. And now that everything has officially been announced, we can really start to focus in on the scare zones, because it seems like they are really making quick work of all this, which is insane because I was only here like, what, 5 days ago? And the progress between then and now is absolutely insane. And I know I keep saying it in every vlog, but the sign should be coming up any day now. But already, if you look straight ahead, there's the marquee post. So it looks like the marquee is going to be presented right next to the gate, which is crazy. I think this is the closest we've ever seen the marquee to the gate. Because last year, it was posted a little bit closer to, you know, photo pickup and the former studio suites. But that also makes me wonder because you have these stands right here. So I assume this is where the first scare zone is, of course, going to start. But I also assume this is where our main character is going to be. Now, I did show you all this last time, but I'm just going to safely assume this is where our icon's going to be. Which now when you think about it, this scare zone is going to be ginormous. And then you have the main set pieces going all the way through Minion Land. And this is probably going to be the final piece to this scare zone. And like I said in the last vlog, that scare zone is definitely going to be the origins of horror. But I'm still so curious as to what exactly it's going to be about, because yes, it says they're going to be carving tributes to Halloween Horror Nights, at least HHN 34 this year, but in what ways? Now, it's safe to say Universal definitely heard us in the last vlog, because as soon as I left, the very next day, they decided to start putting up some of the pieces to this scare zone. And like I said in the last vlog, this is going to be the Mutations Toxic 20 scare zone. And now that I'm looking at it, it makes perfect sense. It's literally New York City in the Roaring 20s with a bunch of goop everywhere. I mean, just looking at the truck right here, there's all our radioactive toxic goop and stuff. And this is essentially the crash that caused all that stuff to leak out. And if we go over here to the floor stand, you can see just all of the decay over here from said radioactive goop. And because there's definitely going to be a scare actor in here, I'm very curious as to what they're going to look like. And you have a police car over here, and I'm assuming the police officer probably got mutated as well. And this right here, given all the barrels, I'm assuming this is going to be some form of speakeasy. But if we talk about where the tribute store is supposed to be, yeah, we got nothing. Which again, if it's for sure going in the arcade, will I be upset about it? Yeah, but there's not much you can really do about it. And then coming over to San Fran, again, still very little construction. I mean, some of these lights went up, which in a sense could be dance lights. Although we still don't have anything over here just yet. Now this time, we're actually gonna take a quick little detour because we are finally starting to get some of the food booths up, and this one looks incredible. Like already, there's all the vines that we saw when we got our first HHN announcement. And now I will mention it right now, we don't have any Nightmare Fuel signage just yet, but don't worry, we'll get there. So it's very exciting. Now coming down over here to Cat Lady, get a load of this. Like, this is quite frankly the biggest set piece I personally have ever seen. But again, just all the little trinkets and stuff, because again, this is absolutely pure 50s, 60s, 70s. And I'm just going to safely assume the Cat Lady herself will be up here. Okay, that is interesting. So I assume she buries her subjects after the fact. This whole thing just looks so unbelievably sinister. But when you think about it, it's a very simple story, yet it still works. And I know I've shown this piece numerous times, but again, it's incredible. But look too, you have all of these vines, so it all comes together. Like, I'll be honest right now, this is definitely going to be the scare zone. Now we have some more pieces going up, like this huge ball of yarn right here. Obviously it's cats, so it makes sense. Again, there's just so much happening here. And right here, we actually have a real storybook to it. Deep in the forest on Halloween night, the trick-or-treaters follow moonlight. The naughty children that dare to explore the old crooked lane along the forest floor. Cat eyes and pumpkins line the dim trail to the Cat Lady's house, so withered and frail. The Cat Lady of Crooked Lane stands on her stoop, stirring her cauldron of special soup. She's not a witch, the children all say, as she pets her cats of orange, black, and gray. She lifts her ladle and offers a taste. They drink it all down. Not a drop goes to waste. So you can see she is definitely a witch. So it's gonna sound very weird and not universal at all, but it has a very much hocus pocus feel to it. The potion sets in, turning hands into claws, and long feline teeth protrude from their jaws. The children all scream as they become beasts and now hunt their friends to add to the feast. The moral of the story, and it should be plain, never trust the Cat Lady of Old Crooked Lane. It makes sense. Oh God, look at that. That is a literal, like, demonic cat. Now, I should mention it. You have the story set on both entrances of the scare zone. So regardless of which way you go in, you're gonna be introduced to the story. But now going back to the cat lady's house, look at the top. There's a mural right there. Because seeing that each scare zone is definitely gonna have some form of mural, they're all gonna have some form of connection to each other. Now going through to Hollywood, here's one of the gates. But again, pay attention to all the vines. Even this piece right here has vines all throughout. But now let's head inside Five and Dime and see if we got anything new. I mean, of course, Five Nights at Freddy's is gonna be the biggest one, so they're gonna have this piece out probably for the foreseeable future. And even then, I still love this shirt. Now this is a new shirt. Interestingly enough, it's also long sleeve, but I love that graphic. There is some new Lil Boo merch over here. Oh wow, that shirt is adorable. But again, see, look at the gargoyle. Look at what it represents. You also have this adorable Lil Boo bag. We also have some Mel's merch over here, which, oh my God. Yeah, I'll be getting this shirt. You also have a couple more goodies as well. But look at the bag. That is something else. Ooh, we got this shirt as well. Oh, I love that. I love that. But now, if you remember earlier when I showed you one of the food stands, we got even more going over here. Look at the vines. But seeing as these two in particular have that sort of like underground industrial look to them, I would assume they're gonna correlate somehow to Toxic 20s. Now, before everyone starts asking questions, no, we do not have any food announcements just yet. We'll probably get them within the next couple days. But now that you think about it, look back to the origins of horror plus the vines. It's almost like this year is basically set in some sort of horrific storybook, whereas, you know, someone dug up the storybook and this is that story. Alrighty, my beauties, seeing as that we're back at home, there's a lot more things that I want to uncover, not just for y'all's sake, but more or less for my sake, because let's be real, this is the most in-depth I've ever gone when it comes to Halloween Horror Nights pre-event. Now, completely disregarding everything that you guys saw in the vlog, let's just take it way back to the beginning. Now, if you've seen all the house announcements and whatnot, you'll see the little intro scene that we get before the TV starts to roll, and that's what they call the conservatory. Now, if you don't really know what a conservatory is, it's basically just a fancy schmancy term for greenhouse. But with that conservatory, you can see just how decayed it is, and because of that, you are in that conservatory when you walk around. But when you look more into it, what I think is going on is that essentially there is someone within that conservatory telling all of these stories when it comes to HHN. And that's where I think the TVs kind of come into play with the commercials, because obviously you're watching a movie, a TV show, it's telling a story. And of course, that's where we're seeing all of these stained glass murals, because again, that's part of the conservatory. Now, going down the line with these scare zones, let's start with the origins of horror. Now, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is going to be followed through in the HHN wiki page, so I'll link it down below if you guys want to check it out for yourselves. But what it's showing is that it's literally the conservatory. That is where you enter into the conservatory. And when you step in, you're going to catch a glimpse of basically the gargoyles, the monsters, of course the chainsaw scare actors, and all that jazz. So that's the main thing that we've been seeing, is the gargoyles. So what I'm guessing is that this gargoyle, or at least there's going to be one specific gargoyle who's sort of like the head of all the gargoyles, potentially. At least that's what I'm getting from this. Now, moving on to Masquerade, I was correct in the beginning. It is going to be in the Hollywood area. When you look at it, it does make a lot of sense because, of course, Dance with Death. So I'm just going to assume that these dancers are either going to be on these pedestals or they're just going to be out and about within the land. Now, the only real backstory that we have to this scare zone, it says dance the night away with vampires at an elaborate masquerade ball where they reveal themselves as they search for their next victims. That's not really a whole lot. But again, I'm wondering, because of these stained glass murals on these pedestals, I'm wondering if those are going to be the characters that are represented within these scare zones, or if they're just there coincidentally as part of the conservatory. Because when you think about it, the main strip going down to Minion Land is the conservatory, whereas Masquerade is almost like the dance hall of the conservatory, or just something along those lines, because these two scare zones match up perfectly. And now if we make our way over to Cat Lady, just looking at the backstory for this one too, it's basically what I've been talking about. However, there is a little bit of an Easter egg to it, which I'm surprised I actually didn't catch from in last year's HHN with Slaughter Cinema. But it says that the scare zone was based off a B-movie poster seen at the ending of Slaughter Cinema 2. Now, I only went to that house, I think, once or twice, so I unfortunately did not catch it. But it makes sense with the HHN ads given the TVs. Slaughter Cinema, you see cinema on TV after the fact. And while I might not be the smartest person in the world, I do know a connection when I see one. And now if we go into Toxic 20s, which will be in the New York area, this backstory is probably the most interesting one, especially when it comes to that kind of connection. In the 1920s, after witnessing the aftermath of a truck crash that spilled rat poison into the streets, mutating flappers throughout a speakeasy who run rampant in the streets. Think about it. A conservatory, a greenhouse, using rat poison to keep rats away from the plants. Think about that for a minute. So again, there's just so many different connections, so many different levels of Easter eggs to think about. And I know I'm going very fast with it, and I do apologize, but mind you, I'm getting such a smile on my face. Like, the gears are just turning in my brain. I'm like, wow, now it all makes sense. So essentially, you start with the conservatory, and then it almost breaks off. So you have one instance, and then the other instance. And it also makes a little bit of sense with Nightmare Fuel to call it Circus of Decay. So there's maybe a little bit of story there too. Now, remember how I was talking about San Fran and how we really didn't know what it was? Looking at the description on the wiki, it says, on the streets of San Francisco, guests will enter Club Horror, where they can snap pictures with original characters, dance to an undead DJ, and party like their life depends on it. So remember how I kept talking about that stage on the right side? That's definitely going to be where the DJ is. And that's probably also why there isn't anything on the other side closer to Fast and Furious, because that's probably where these maybe dancers will be. Like, I'm sorry guys, like, everything is all coming together now, and it makes perfect sense, and I love it. You know, now that I think about it, the fact that I never went this far in depth into HHN is kind of sad. But I think I got my point across. There's a lot of connections when it comes to this specific season in general, but it also ties into past seasons too. But aside from that, I think we basically covered everything that we want to cover right now. Of course, as the scare zones continue to make their way up, we're going to head on back and cover even more. But until then, we do this every single week, so make sure you like, subscribe, share, and ring that bell. Take care of yourselves, and we will see y'all next time.